High up in the mountains, a rugged area lay blanketed in white snow. The biting winter air whistled through the tall pines, and the sky glowed a crisp blue. Inside a cozy cave, a mountain man named Hank lived alone. His rough hands showed the wear of hard labor, but his heart softened with every sunrise. Hank had spent years in this solitude, far from the bustling town below. He loved the quiet of nature, the sound of the wind howling outside while he stoked his fire inside. His days were filled with chopping wood, hunting for food, and enjoying the peace that came with living alone. As he stirred his morning stew, memories drifted through his mind. Laughter from neighbors, the chatter of townsfolk during market days. But those days felt like a distant dream now. Just then he heard a commotion outside, voices rising in excitement. What are they up to this time? Hank wondered aloud as he walked to the cave entrance. Peering down toward the trail that led to his home, he saw several townspeople gathered below. They were laughing, pointing at something, or someone, coming his way. Suddenly he spotted a figure climbing up the snowy path. It was May, a young Chinese girl from town. She was bundled in a thick coat, her breath forming tiny clouds in the frosty air. Confused by her presence, Hank raised an eyebrow and shouted down, "What brings you here, little lady?" The townspeople in the valley below had been watching Hank from a distance, chuckling at his isolated life. They knew he preferred solitude, but also thought he needed a little fun. One chilly afternoon, the idea struck them. Why not send someone to clean his cave as a joke? After some discussion, they settled on May, a spirited 20-year-old girl who was always up for an adventure. As the plan unfolded, laughter filled the air. "Hank won't know what hit him," one of the men exclaimed, "and May will get a story to tell." They all agreed it would be harmless fun, a way to brighten Hank's solitary days. Meanwhile, as May climbed higher up the snowy path towards Hank's cave, she felt nervous yet excited. The townsfolk had told her about the mountain man and his gruff demeanor. "Just go in there and give him a good cleaning," they teased her with smiles. "He'll laugh about it." When she finally reached the entrance, Hank's curious gaze met hers. "What brings you here, little lady?" he asked again. May took a deep breath and replied, "The townspeople sent me to clean your cave. They thought it would be funny." With a shy smile, she added, "I hope you don't mind." Hank blinked in surprise, but then chuckled softly. "Well, I could use some help around here," he said, intrigued by the unexpected visitor. As May stood at the base of the mountain, she took a deep breath and smoothed her coat. With the broom in one hand and 2 buckets of water in the other, she felt both nervous and determined. Climbing the snowy path, her heart raced with each step closer to Hank's cave. The townspeople's laughter echoed in her ears, fueling her resolve. "Just keep your head high," she murmured to herself. "It's only a cleaning." May had heard stories about Hank, the mountain man who lived alone, but now she was face to face with the real deal. The icy wind whipped around her as she approached the entrance, and she paused for a moment to steady herself before stepping inside. The cave was dark but cozy, its walls rough and sturdy. Hank stood there with his brow raised, watching her closely. "Well now, what do we have here?" he asked with a grin. "I'm May," she said nervously, clenching the broom. "The townspeople sent me to clean your cave." "Well, I could use some help indeed," Hank replied with a chuckle. He motioned for her to start whenever she was ready. May smiled sheepishly and got to work right away. She began sweeping the dirt floor with swift strokes, trying to shake off any lingering jitters. The sound of the broom against stone echoed in the cave as she concentrated on making everything tidy. Little did they both know that this simple task would lead to an unexpected friendship. As May began to sweep, Hank watched her with a mix of surprise and amusement. It was not every day that someone braved the cold to climb up to his cave, especially sent as a joke. "What brings you up here, little lady?" he chuckled, leaning against the rough stone wall, arms crossed. May paused, slightly embarrassed. "The townspeople thought it would be funny to send me to clean your cave," she replied, trying to keep her tone light despite her nerves. She felt a wave of relief wash over her as Hank's laughter echoed in the cozy space. "Cleaning, huh? Well, I never thought I'd have a visitor to help with that." Hank's eyes sparkled with mirth, and his hearty laughter warmed the chilly atmosphere. "I suppose I do need some help in here. It tends to get a bit dusty." With that, Hank motioned for her to carry on. May resumed sweeping, feeling a bit more at ease now that Hank was friendly. As she worked, she noticed how the cave was both rugged and welcoming. Sunlight streamed through a small opening up high, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. "So, how does it feel to be a part of the town's prank?" Hank asked playfully. May grinned. "It's something I won't forget easily, but honestly, I didn't think it would be so nice up here." Hank nodded, appreciating her spirit as they continued their playful banter while she cleaned. While May continued her sweeping, Hank leaned against the cave wall, clearly entertained by her presence. The atmosphere felt lighter, and she could sense a budding friendship forming between them. Steeling herself, she turned to Hank with a grin and said confidently, "I'm here to clean your cave. They thought it would be funny." Hank chuckled heartily, the sound echoing off the stone walls. "Funny indeed. I must admit, you've got guts coming up here all alone." He tilted his head, trying to gauge her attitude. "Do you really think you can handle the dust and dirt in this place?" May laughed back, feeling emboldened by his friendly demeanor. "Well, I may not have done this before, but I'm willing to try. There's nothing a good broom can't handle." With renewed energy, she started sweeping more vigorously, sending small clouds of dust into the air. "That's the spirit," Hank replied with a grin. "Just don't let it go to your head that you're now my official cleaner," he joked. "You might regret saying that if I do a fantastic job," May shot back playfully, laughing at their banter. As they chatted and worked together, Hank found himself genuinely enjoying the moment. It was nice to have company in his cave again, even if it was sparked by a prank from the townsfolk. He watched May tackle the mess with determination and appreciated her lively spirit in his otherwise quiet life. As the laughter between May and Hank faded, a comfortable silence settled in the cave. May continued to sweep, her broom pushing aside dust and debris while she felt increasingly at home. She glanced around at the rugged walls and wooden shelves filled with supplies. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "this place has a certain charm. It really could use some tidying up." Hank rubbed his chin, considering her words. "You're right about that," he replied, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Most days, I don't think much about cleaning. I'm more focused on surviving the cold and finding my next meal." May chuckled, feeling the warmth of their growing friendship. Suddenly, an idea struck Hank. "You can stay if you want," he said, nodding toward the mess around them. "This place could definitely use some tidying up." May's eyes widened in surprise. "Stay? You really mean it?" "Sure," Hank replied with a grin. "What's better than having someone else to share this chilly mountain with? I could use some help, and some company." Her heart fluttered at the thought of being welcomed into his world for a little while longer. "I'd like that," she said softly, a smile spreading across her face. With fresh determination, May dove back into her cleaning tasks, feeling grateful for this unexpected opportunity. As she worked alongside Hank, they shared stories and laughter, each moment weaving their bond tighter against the backdrop of the snowy mountains outside. With newfound enthusiasm, May set to work in Hank's cave, her broom sweeping across the dirt floor with swift, cheerful strokes. She felt invigorated as she moved, determined to make the cozy space even cozier. The rhythmic sound of the broom against the ground echoed in the cave, blending with the gentle rustling of the wind outside. Hank leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, and watched with curious eyes. He couldn't help but smile at May's energy. "You're quite the worker," he remarked, appreciating her dedication. "I could learn a thing or two from you about keeping this place tidy." "Well, maybe I'll teach you," May shot back playfully as she wiped dust from a wooden table nearby. "A little elbow grease goes a long way." Hank chuckled and nodded. He was amazed at how quickly she was transforming his space. The once dusty corners began to look brighter, and the cave felt more inviting by the minute. As May scrubbed surfaces and organized his supplies, she stole glances at Hank. He seemed genuinely pleased, his expression softening as he observed her efforts. "Do you often have visitors?" she asked curiously while she wiped down a shelf filled with jars. "Not really," Hank replied with a shrug. "Just me and my thoughts most days." "Oh, well, you're lucky I'm here now," May teased, giving him a wink. They both laughed, and for the first time in a long while, Hank felt a sense of warmth and companionship that he hadn't realized he missed so much. As May tidied up the last corners of the cave, she began to share stories about her life in the bustling town below. "You know," she said with a smile, brushing off a dusty shelf, "my dad owns a small shop where we sell herbs and spices. It's always busy with customers, and I love listening to their tales." Hank leaned against the cave wall, intrigued. "Sounds lively. What's the most exciting thing you've ever done there?" May paused, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Well, one time I helped organize a festival in the town square. There were games, music, and people dancing everywhere. I got to help my dad set up a big booth with lanterns that lit up the night. It was magical." "Magical, huh?" Hank murmured. He found himself captivated by her vivid descriptions. "But what about adventure? Don't you dream of exploring beyond the mountains?" May nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. Far away from here, I want to see the vast plains where wildflowers grow and the rivers that sparkle like diamonds. I've heard stories from travelers who pass through our town, and they all speak of places so beautiful they take your breath away." Hank smiled warmly. "Sounds like you have big dreams. Maybe one day you'll find your way to those lands." "Maybe, with a little courage and a good map," May replied with a grin. As they worked together, their laughter filled the cave, weaving their lives together like threads in a vibrant tapestry against the backdrop of winter's chill outside. As they continued their work, May noticed a thoughtful expression crossing Hank's face. "What about you, Hank?" she asked, pausing to wipe her hands on her apron. "How did you end up living all the way up here in the mountains?" Hank took a deep breath, his gaze drifting to the snowy peaks outside. "Well, it's a long story," he began slowly. "I used to live in a small town much like yours. I had a family and friends, but life became hard after a series of losses." May listened attentively, sensing the weight of his words. "What happened?" she asked gently. He sighed, his voice heavy with memory. "My family fell ill one winter, and I lost them all within weeks. I didn't want to stay where every corner reminded me of them, so I packed my things and headed into the mountains for solitude." "I'm so sorry," May said softly, feeling a pang of sympathy for him. "It was tough at first," Hank continued, his eyes still distant. "But as time went on, I found peace in the wilderness. The mountains became my home, a place where I could think and heal." He turned to her with a smile. "But I never expected to enjoy company again until today." May smiled back warmly, realizing that their paths crossing was no accident. "I'm glad you let me stay," she said sincerely. Their connection deepened in that moment, two souls sharing their stories under the expansive sky filled with stars, bridging the gap between lonely pasts and hopeful futures. As the evening settled in, the glow of the fire flickered against the cave walls, casting playful shadows. May paused her cleaning and turned to Hank, curiosity glimmering in her eyes. "So, what were your dreams when you were my age?" she asked, wiping her brow. Hank chuckled softly, taking a moment to think. "I dreamed of adventure, just like you. I wanted to explore the lands far beyond these mountains, to see cities full of life and meet people from all walks of life." He paused, glancing at May. "But, as you know, life has a way of changing our plans." "Do you regret it?" May asked gently. "Sometimes," he admitted, his voice thoughtful. "But I've also found beauty in this solitude. It gives me time to reflect and appreciate nature. Still, I do miss the closeness of family and friends." May nodded, understanding his sentiments. "Family is important," she said softly. "I can't imagine being away from mine for long." Hank glanced at her, a smile creeping onto his face. "It's good to have you around, then. You remind me of what it's like to dream again." May's heart warmed at his words. "And you remind me of the strength it takes to pursue those dreams," she replied. Together they shared their hopes and fears, two souls finding common ground in their struggles and aspirations. The warmth between them grew stronger as laughter and vulnerability filled the air, weaving a deeper bond that transcended their pasts and painted a brighter picture for the future. After hours of cleaning, May stepped back to admire her work. The once dusty cave now sparkled with cleanliness, and the shelves were neatly organized. She felt a swell of pride in her chest as she surveyed the cozy space that had transformed under her care. Hank, sitting by the fire, glanced around the cave with a look of genuine appreciation. "You did a fine job here," he said, grinning widely. "I can hardly believe how much better it looks." May beamed at his praise. "Thank you. I didn't realize how much dust was hiding in every corner," she replied, brushing her hands together to rid them of any remaining dirt. "It feels nice to make this place feel more like home." "It's definitely more inviting now," Hank agreed, nodding thoughtfully. "You've got quite the talent for cleaning, and for bringing life back into an old space." As they settled down near the fire, May felt the warmth of Hank's compliment wrap around her like a cozy blanket. "I enjoyed it. It was nice to have something to focus on besides my own thoughts," she admitted softly. Hank raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Is that what you do back in town? Clean and help others?" "Sometimes," May said with a smile. "But I also dream of adventures beyond the mountains." "Adventure is out there waiting for you," he encouraged. "And here you are, taking the first step by being brave enough to come up here." Their laughter and conversation filled the cozy cave, cementing their bond as newfound friends amidst the snowy wilderness outside. The next day, the townspeople decided to check on May, wondering how their prank had turned out. They made their way up the mountain path, chuckling to themselves about the idea of sending her to clean Hank's cave. As they approached, they could hear laughter ringing out through the chilly air. Peering around a cluster of trees, they were surprised to see May and Hank sitting together by the fire, sharing stories and laughing like old friends. May's animated expressions and Hank's hearty chuckles created a scene that was warm and lively, quite different from what they had expected. "Look at that!" one of the townspeople exclaimed, eyes wide with disbelief. "They actually seem to be getting along." "Do you think she really cleaned up his cave?" another chimed in, half jokingly. They cautiously walked closer, intrigued by the unexpected sight. As they approached, Hank caught sight of them first, a grin spreading across his face. "Well, if it isn't my visitors from town," he called out cheerfully. May turned and waved enthusiastically. "You wouldn't believe how much fun I've had." The townspeople exchanged glances, astonished by her excitement. "We were worried you might be stuck up here in silence," one said with a laugh. "Not at all," May replied with a bright smile. "I've learned so much already, and Hank has been wonderful company." Hank nodded in agreement, clearly pleased with her words. The townspeople realized that their prank had blossomed into something far more meaningful than they could have imagined, bringing together two unexpected friends in the heart of the mountains. As the townspeople gathered outside Hank's cave, they couldn't help but marvel at the unexpected scene before them. May was laughing heartily alongside Hank, her energy vibrant against the backdrop of the snowy mountains. They had shared stories and laughter, creating a warm atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the winter chill outside. Hank, noticing the townspeople's surprised expressions, decided to address them directly. "Well, if it isn't my visitors from town," he called out cheerfully, "you've come to check on May." The townspeople nodded, still astonished by the sight of May looking so content. One of them chuckled and said, "We thought she might be trapped up here." May smiled brightly and chimed in, "Not at all. I've had a wonderful time cleaning and getting to know Hank." Hank grinned as he added, "She's not going anywhere. I could use her help around here." His words were light-hearted, but they carried an undertone of sincerity. "Really?" one of the townsfolk asked in disbelief. "You're going to keep her here?" "Why not?" Hank replied with a shrug. "It's nice having someone around who can brighten up this old cave." May felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. The townspeople exchanged glances, realizing that what had started as a prank had turned into something far more meaningful, a friendship that had blossomed in the most unexpected place. "Then we'll have to come visit more often," another townsperson said with a laugh, already imagining their next adventure together in the heart of the mountains. As the days passed, May found herself feeling increasingly at home in Hank's cave. The snowy mountains surrounding them provided a sense of peace she hadn't anticipated, and the bond they had formed made her heart feel lighter. One afternoon, while they sat together by the fire, she looked at Hank with a thoughtful expression. "Hank," she began, "I've really enjoyed my time here. It feels different than I imagined it would." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "How so?" "Well, I thought coming up here would just be about cleaning and leaving, but instead," she continued with a smile, "I've discovered friendship and warmth, something I didn't expect to find in such a remote place." Hank nodded, appreciating her words. "I feel the same way. You've brought life back into this old cave. I didn't realize how much I missed having someone to share stories and laughter with." May's eyes sparkled with determination. "Then maybe I should stay a little longer, if you don't mind. There's still so much to learn from you about living in the mountains." Hank grinned widely, his heart warming at her enthusiasm. "I'd welcome that. This place could always use someone like you around." And so, May decided to stay with Hank for a while longer, savoring the peaceful moments they shared amid the breathtaking scenery. Together, they embraced each day as an adventure, a new chapter of their lives written under the vast sky filled with twinkling stars. As the winter days turned into weeks, the townspeople continued to visit Hank and May, intrigued by the unique bond that had formed between the mountain man and the spirited girl. They were amazed at how their light-hearted prank had blossomed into a heartwarming friendship. One day, as they gathered around a warm fire in the cave, one of the townspeople remarked, "It's wonderful to see you both so happy. Who would have thought sending May up here would lead to all this?" Hank chuckled, looking at May with gratitude. "Sometimes you never know what will come from a little mischief," he said, smiling. "I certainly didn't expect to gain a friend like May." May nodded in agreement, her eyes shining brightly. "I came here thinking it would just be a chore, but I found laughter and adventure instead. It's shown me that life can surprise you in the best ways." Another townsman added, "It's true. This just goes to show that jokes can bring people together and create lasting connections." Their laughter echoed through the cave as they shared stories of their days, their conversations rich with warmth and camaraderie. The townspeople realized that sometimes what starts as a playful joke can lead to unexpected friendships and grand adventures. In that cozy cave nestled high among the snowy peaks, they all understood that life was about embracing those surprises and cherishing the connections formed along the way. And as they looked around at each other, they knew they were part of something special, an unbreakable bond forged in laughter and shared experiences.